bring Lady Renouf into our discussion. Lady Renouf, your take on the string of assassinations which is so far has led to the murder of 4 Iranian scientists, 5 attacks, 4 scientists murdered. And what do you make of US Republican presidential candidates, all of whom, except Ron Paul, endorsing the killing of Iranian nuclear scientists, including the most recent one by Rick Santrum, who described Ahmadi Roshan's murder as being wonderful?
Yes, I think that is absolutely disgraceful, and it just goes to show how very far Jeffersonian America has been thrown away. The Constitution of America, which says no meddling in foreign countries, this has been thrown away now, and each time I wish when the Iranians say down with America, they would say down with Zionist America, to help educate the American public as to what it is that we oppose, and that what they need is up with Jeffersonian America, because America is completely an occupied country, like England is an occupied country. We are Zionist occupied, and the policies are absolutely pro-Zionist. We really must define these things as clearly as possible, and Ron Paul is really the only presidential candidate, and he will soon be removed, just as Pat Buchanan was, because all other presidential candidates in the US and elsewhere in the West simply are pro-Zionist, and there is therefore no democracy in the West, because there is no media which allows us to know else other than the pro-Zionist policy. Other than, in fact, Russia Today actually gives us an inkling occasionally. But other than that, they lose their licenses if they want to broadcast because of the privileged veto over the licensing of television stations and the media in general. And, of course, the war debt, which has caused all of our countries to have to be subject to the usurious international Zionism. And so we really must attempt to address those two things that the two prophets of Christianity and Islam did try to address. Unfortunately, Christianity is no longer there. It is now Christian Zionism, and that Republican presidential candidate who said it was wonderful that this wonderful scientist was murdered by the Mossad actually is the representative of Christian Zionism. There is no more Christianity in the world. It's now Holocaustianity.
Thank you, Lady Renouf. Lady Renouf, the question I'd like to put to you is why the general silence being adopted by international organizations, international bodies such as human rights organizations in view of these terror acts being carried out in Iran? Wouldn't hell been broken loose had it been in another country like a Western country or a European country?
Yes, because you have to bear in mind that the UN itself is a Zionist initiative. And before that, you had the League of Nations, which was also a Zionist initiative. The UN itself was based on the Nuremberg trials of 1945 and 46. And there were at the time, there were 5 top US Supreme Court judges who said that those trials were a judicial farce, because you cannot bring a case where you are judge and jury. It's against natural justice. You cannot have tortured testimony as giving the proof. In the case of Rudolf Hess, who was he had his genitals crushed, as a matter of fact, we know this, to say that he was responsible for 2.5 million homicidally gassed Jews. Whereas, in fact, those plaques that were at Auschwitz that said 4 million died there have now been removed, and it says 1.1 million. So that the testimony that that man endured and gave proved to be a lie in the first place. So, and furthermore, you cannot have any of these ideas of justice based on the UN, because we have not seen any resolutions against Israel's criminal behavior carried out one iota. So we are not going to get any of these international organizations which are pro-Zionist to do anything until we have historical truth. We are not going to have international justice. That is why I celebrate Hamas, because they stand at the front line of truth, historical truth and justice for all of us. And the Khomeini revolution itself actually represents the last bastion of the classical Greek tradition, which the Jeffersonian West and Iran share, because they are the classical virtues where you uphold courage with not vainglory but with empathy. We see this in Iran. You have justice, but you have unbiased justice. We see this in Iran. There is wisdom, but with scientific attitude. We see that in the advancements that Iran has made, why it is the leader in the region, because it has combined wisdom with the classical Greek tradition of scientific attitude. And of course temperance, which means balance, harmony, and so on. Those four classical virtues are embodied in the Iran of today. And I dearly wish that America and our West, our occupied West, would return to those Jeffersonian traditions which we share with Iran. Because until we do, we are simply going to go down more and more evil paths of killing countries, ruining them, taking their sovereignty away under war debt, and all of this usurious behavior, which Iran and Islam can teach us very well about. We are really not going to have anything but a horrible New World Order disaster, such as your professor speaking, your other guest was describing. It is a very big operation that includes political, cultural, internal, external forces that are trying to corrupt. And thank goodness the Twitter revolution did not work. You have two presidential candidates even in Iran who cannot be divided. The enemy would love to divide them, Ahmadinejad and Laranjani, but they both stand firm against this attack on Iran. And so you have a wonderful Ayatollah who says that the sanctions are not working against the Iranians, because the Iranians have a steadfast, valiant stance. And it's a wonderful example for the West. If the Americans would restore themselves to act like the Iranians, we would have a wonderful West, and we would have a peaceful world. So I must say there are so many people like me out there grateful to the Iranians, grateful to its revolution, and we wish that we had leaders in the West who would do the same for our countries, to keep the predator out. Your leaders keep the predator out of your country, and this is what we need in all of our countries.
Thank you, Lady Renouf. Lady Renouf, what does it tell you as an overseas observer about Iran's strength, its determination in pursuing its scientific path, particularly in the nuclear field, that all Iran's enemies can do to obstruct its scientific progress is to take out a scientist here and there, man?
Yes, they are becoming quite desperate, actually. The Israelis are becoming quite desperate because of the valiant stance of the Iranians. They have survived the Twitter revolution, which was the schmooze revolution. They've survived the Obama schmooze as well, to say we love the Iranians, providing they don't believe in the Quran. They can be Muslims but not believe in the Quran. We will like them, if they are Americanized, you see. So it has been a fantastic stance that the Iranians have taken. Both the leadership and the people. It's to be massively, we should be very, very grateful to the Iranians for this. But I think the world itself is actually looking again at this situation, because we see now with these, just the latest news we have is that the major US and Israel military exercises have been delayed. Now, there's got to be some sort of extraordinary thing happening here, I think, if I may read this. The latest from the New York Times says, Israel and the United States have agreed to postpone major joint, so we know that when they want to say that what Israel is doing, it's got nothing to do with the Americans, of course it has everything to do with pro-Zionist America. They are absolutely in cahoots. If Mossad is guilty, so as its collusionists. So here is a perfect example of that. And also this is a very interesting thing here, because if this major joint missile defense exercises are to be, which were scheduled for spring, because of regional tensions and instability, are going to be postponed, according to Israel's Foreign Minister Lieberman, this must suggest something, that we need to see that the sanctions are actually working against the people who are imposing them upon peaceful Iran.
Okay, Lady Renouf.
Because there is something to be said about this postponement. If in fact,
Lady Renouf, we've got 30 seconds left. Lady Renouf, I've just been told we've been given 30 seconds. Your concluding comments, ma'am. Wrap up the program for us in 30 seconds, please.
I think that the sanctions are not working against Iran. The Iranians are very strong, capable people. This is a very good sign that they have delayed this military action between Israel and the US. Stand firm. You need to stand firm for all of us in the world. Iran, we need you. We love you.
Thank you.